Hello, friend. I'm so glad you're here. Wherever you are tonight, in your bed, in a chair, in the dark of a room that finally feels quiet, I want you to know that you don't have to hold anything for the next few hours. Not your day, not your worries, not even your own thoughts, if they're feeling heavy right now. You can set all of it down, right here, and let it rest beside you while we walk through this story together. Tonight we're going to follow something small, a single flame, carried by ordinary people through some of the darkest nights in an old and beloved story. And what I want you to notice more than anything else is this. None of them were ever asked to light up the whole sky. They were only ever asked to tend one small flame in front of them, while everything else was held by someone greater. So before we begin, let's breathe together. Together, slowly, breathe in with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold it there for just a moment. 2, 3, and let it go. Slowly. 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. One more time. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, and out. Slowly. All the way out. Until your shoulders drop. Until your jaw unclenches. Until the day finally loosens its grip on you. Let your hands rest open at your sides. If you can, palms up. A small, simple posture of surrender. You don't have to hold anything tonight. Not your worries. Not your plans for tomorrow. Not the weight of everything that happened today. Just let your hands stay open. And let everything else stay open too. Before we step into tonight's story, let's set this whole night into God's hands. Father, thank you for this day, even the hard parts of it. Thank you that you never grow tired watching over the people you love. As this night begins, we ask you to still every racing thought, to quiet every worry that wants to keep us awake, and to remind us, gently, all through the dark hours, that we are not alone, not for one single minute. Wrap your peace around this room like a blanket. Let sleep come easily and stay deeply. We trust you with tonight. In Jesus' name. Amen. Now, let's begin. I want to tell you about lamps. Not big lights. Not lighthouses. Not bonfires. Not anything that tries to burn bright enough to chase away every shadow for miles. I mean small lamps. Old lamps. The kind that held just enough oil to last through a single watch of the night. The kind a hand could cup gently around to keep a breeze from stealing the flame. In the world of this old story, there were no switches on the wall. No glow that filled a whole house at once. there was only this: a wick, a little oil, and someone willing to keep it lit. And I think that's closer to how most of our nights actually feel, isn't it? We don't usually need the whole sky illuminated. We don't need to see 10 years down the road, or even 10 hours down the road. We just need enough light for the step we're on, enough warmth for the hour we're in, enough presence to know we are not actually alone in the dark, even when it feels that way. So tonight, I want to walk with you along something I've come to think of as the lamplighter's route. A quiet path through 6 different nights, 6 different people, 6 small flames, each one carried faithfully, each one enough, because behind every one of them was someone larger, tending everything the lamp itself could never reach. We'll begin in a small town called Zarephath, with a woman who had almost nothing left, not even enough oil for one more meal, and yet was asked to light one more small fire anyway. From there we'll move to a hillside outside Bethlehem, where shepherds kept watch through the coldest part of the night, tending fires that did nothing more than warm a small circle of ground. On the very night, the sky itself would open above them. Then we'll walk the walls of an old town at dusk, beside a man whose only job, every single evening of his life, was to light the lamps along the wall, one after another, never all at once, never trying to do more than the lamp in his hand. After that, we'll rest a while under a broom tree in the wilderness, beside a tired, frightened prophet who had run further than his body could carry him, and discover what it looks like when God tends to someone who has nothing left to tend to themselves. Then we'll climb into a small boat on a dark and heaving sea, where a single lamp burned at the stern all night, small, flickering, and somehow never going out, no matter how the waves rose around it. After the storm settles, we'll visit a handful of quieter, older nights too. A wedding watch where 10 small lamps waited through hours longer than expected. A dusty evening road where 2 grieving friends walked beside someone they didn't recognize until the very end. A broken wall inspected honestly. Alone, under moonlight, before any rebuilding could begin. A stone pillow beneath a sleeping traveler's head, with a stairway to heaven quietly standing watch above him. An old watchman's song about wading through the darkest hours for a morning that always, eventually, comes. A midnight song rising up from the deepest, most painful darkness a prison cell could offer. An angel's quiet light breaking gently into a place of chains. And the very oldest night of all, when whole households sheltered together until morning, trusting a promise marked simply, humbly, above their doors. And finally, we'll come back home, to your house, your room, your night, and we'll walk through it together, lamp by lamp, the way God walks through it, Gently, unhurried, making sure every corner you're afraid of is a corner he already knows. You don't need to remember any of this. You don't need to follow every detail. If you drift off in the very first story, that's all right. That's more than all right. That's the whole point. This isn't a test. It's a bedtime story, the way you might have had one told to you as a child. Except this time it's just for you. Exactly as you are tonight. Exactly as tired as you are. Exactly as anxious or as still as your heart happens to be right now. I think before we begin properly, it's worth saying a little more about why this particular idea, small lights, faithfully tended, rather than one great blaze meant to banish all the darkness at once, has settled so deeply into how I think about faith and rest and the particular exhaustion so many of us carry into our evenings. We live, most of us, in a world that measures things by scale. Bigger is better. More is safer. If a little light is good, surely a lot of light would be even better. Brighter, more secure, more capable of holding back whatever frightens us. And so we often try to solve our anxious nights the same way, by trying to think of everything at once, plan for everything at once, hold every possible outcome steady in our minds, all at the same time, as though enough mental effort could somehow function like a floodlight over our whole future. But that isn't how any lamp in tonight's story worked. Not one of them was large. Not one of them lit more than the small space immediately around it. And yet, every single time, it was enough. Not because the lamp itself was powerful, but because something larger than the lamp was present alongside it, tending what the small flame alone could never have covered. So tonight, I'm not going to ask you to solve anything, or plan anything, or hold your whole future steady in your mind before you're allowed to rest. I'm only going to ask you to tend one small lamp at a time, right alongside me, the way each person in tonight's story did, trusting the whole while that everything the lamp cannot reach is already being tended by someone else. Because here's the truth underneath all 6 of these stories. And I want you to hold on to just this one line, if nothing else stays with you tonight. One small light is enough, because God is tending the rest. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. Let your breathing slow to match my voice. And let's walk together into the first small light of the evening. There was a woman who lived at the edge of a small town called Zarephath, near the sea, in a season when the sky had forgotten how to rain. For a long time now, no clouds had gathered, no rivers had run full. The ground had cracked into pale, dry lines like the palm of an old hand. And everywhere across that country, people had grown thin with waiting for water that never came. The widow lived alone with her son. Her husband was gone, There was no one else to bring anything into that small stone house. No field to harvest. No flock to shepherd. Nothing but a jar of flour in the bottom of a clay bin, and a small flask of oil, and the low, familiar ache of hunger that had followed her for longer than she could remember. Every evening, as the light went from gold to gray to that soft, settling blue that comes just before true dark, she would gather a few sticks from wherever she could find them. Old, dry, brittle things, and she would build the smallest fire she could manage, just enough to bake one last thin cake of bread. Enough for herself, enough for her son. And then, she had told herself quietly, watching the flour dwindle a little more each day, there would be nothing left. She had already decided how the story would end. She had counted the sticks. She had counted the handfuls of flour. She had done the arithmetic of a mother who loves her child more than her own life, and had arrived at the last evening. It was on that very evening, the last one, the one she had already grieved before it even arrived, that she went out to gather sticks one final time, and a stranger was waiting at the edge of the town gate. He was a traveler, weathered by distance, his clothes marked by long roads and longer silence. And when he saw her, he asked, gently but plainly, for a little water to drink. She went to fetch it for him, the way anyone might for a tired traveler passing through. But before she had gone far, he called after her again. Bring me, please, he said, a piece of bread as well. And something in her broke open, quietly, the way grief does when it's asked one question too many. As surely as the Lord your God lives. She said, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die. She said it plainly, not dramatically, the way you say the truth when you've stopped having the energy to soften it. And the traveler, who was a prophet named Elijah, though she did not yet know that, looked at her with something that was not pity. Exactly, but something steadier, something closer to certainty. Don't be afraid, he said. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me. Then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. I want you to sit with her for just a moment, in that space between his words and her decision, because this is the part of the story that matters most, and it's easy to walk past it too quickly. She had nothing, not almost nothing, nothing. She had already made peace with the ending, and a stranger was asking her to give away the very last of what she had. On the strength of a promise she had no way to verify, no way to test, no way to see ahead of time whether it would hold. And yet, she went home. She did as he said. I think, in a way, this is one of the oldest and gentlest pictures in the whole of this old story. That faith is rarely a leap into certainty. It's usually just a woman with a handful of flour, deciding to light one more small fire. Not because she can see the outcome, but because someone trustworthy asked her to keep tending the flame in front of her. Just one more time. She made the bread. Small, thin, simple. The kind of bread that comes from almost nothing. And she brought it to him. And that evening, there was enough. Not abundance. Not a feast. Just enough. Enough flour left in the jar the next morning to make bread again. Enough oil in the jug to fill the lamp another night. Enough, and then enough again. And then enough again after that. Day after day. A small and steady sufficiency that never grew into surplus and never ran dry into nothing. I imagined her, some nights, still afraid. I think faith doesn't erase fear so easily as we sometimes wish it would. I imagine her checking the jar before bed some evenings, half expecting to find it empty. The way we sometimes lie awake, running our hands along the edges of our own fears, even after we've been told, gently, that we're safe. But every morning, there it was, the flour, the oil, enough for the day in front of her. Not enough for the whole famine. Not enough to see the drought's end. Just enough for the day she was standing in. And maybe that's part of why this story has lasted so long. Told and retold by firelight for longer than either of us has been alive. Because so many of us live exactly there. Don't we? Not in abundance. Not in certainty. Just in the daily, quiet asking. Will there be enough for today? And the daily, quiet answer. Yes. Just enough. Come back tomorrow, and I'll show you again. Each evening, when the widow lit her small lamp against the coming dark, she wasn't lighting it because she had reserves to spare. She was lighting it because that was her portion for that night. The flame in front of her, however small, and the God who had not yet let the jar run dry. And maybe that's the gift hidden inside our story for you tonight. Whoever you are, whatever you've been quietly rationing in your own heart these last few weeks, your energy, your hope, your sense that things will be all right. You don't need enough for the whole famine. You only need enough for tonight. And that has already been given to you. I think, too, about her son during those long months. Old enough to understand, at least a little, how close they had come to the end, old enough perhaps to notice the particular quality of quiet that settled over his mother in the evenings. Not despair anymore, but something gentler, something closer to a wary, watchful hope. Children notice these things, even when we think we've hidden them well. I imagine him watching her measure the flour each morning, watching her hands, waiting the way children do, to see whether the grown-up in the room still believed things would be all right. And every morning, they were. There must have come a point. I like to imagine it, though the story doesn't linger there, when the fear in that house began to soften into something more like trust. Not because anything about their circumstances had changed. The famine hadn't lifted. The fields were still cracked and dry. But because day after day of enough had begun to write something new into the widow's body, into her son's small growing sense of the world. The quiet, accumulating evidence that they were being kept. I wonder if that's part of what faith becomes. Over time, for those of us willing to keep showing up to the jar each morning. Not a single dramatic leap, taken once and never revisited, but a slow accumulation of small enoughs, stacked one on top of another, until one day you notice that the fear has quietly loosened its grip without you ever having fought it directly. There's a detail later in this part of the story that I find myself returning to often. Maybe because it comes almost as an afterthought, almost too small to notice at first. The widow's son grew sick. Some time after, so sick that his breathing stopped, so sick that his mother believed, in her grief, that some old debt had finally come due. Some judgment she couldn't name arriving at last for whatever she imagined she'd done wrong. She carried him to the prophet, this same Elijah who had once asked her for bread when she had nothing left to give. And she laid her whole shattered heart at his feet. And Elijah took the boy, carried him to the room where he was staying, laid him on the bed, and cried out to God on his behalf, stretching himself over the child, asking simply for life to return. And it did. I don't tell you this to frighten you, or to suggest that every night ends the way we hope it will. I tell you because I think it matters that the widow's story doesn't end simply with a full jar and a household untouched by further trouble. Trouble came again. It always does in this life. But so did help. So did the same faithful presence that had kept the oil from running dry, now reaching into the deepest fear a mother can carry, and restoring what had been lost. The lamp had never promised her a life without darkness. It had only ever promised her enough light for whatever darkness came. And when the darkest moment of all arrived, her child, still and silent in her arms, the same faithful hand that had kept her jar of flour from running dry reached even into that. I wonder sometimes what it must have felt like for her, years later, to tell this story herself, to a neighbor, perhaps, or to her son once he was grown, sitting by a fire much like the ones we're picturing together tonight. I imagine she wouldn't have led with the miracle. I think she would have started where we started, with the sticks she was gathering, the meal she believed would be her last, the stranger at the gate who asked for more than she thought she had left to give. I think she would have wanted whoever was listening to feel, first, just how little she believed remained, before they heard how much was actually given. That's often how these stories work, isn't it? The miracle only makes sense once you've sat honestly in the emptiness that came before it. I think, too, about the sheer ordinariness of the miracle itself, which is easy to overlook precisely because it never announced itself with any drama. There was no flash of light over the jar, no voice from heaven confirming, out loud, that the flour had multiplied. She simply reached in, the way she had reached in every day before, expecting to find the bottom, and instead found enough. I wonder if that's often how God's provision actually looks in our own lives too. Not loud, not obviously miraculous, but quiet, almost easy to miss if we're not paying attention. The unexpected phone call that arrives at exactly the right moment. The stranger's small kindness that somehow covers exactly what we needed covered. The strength that shows up on the hardest morning, from somewhere we can't quite locate, just enough to get us through the day in front of us. We don't always get a prophet standing at our gate, announcing in advance that our jar won't run dry. Sometimes we simply live inside the mystery of it, reaching in, again and again, uncertain each time whether this will be the day it finally runs out, and finding, again and again, that it doesn't, not yet, not today. I think about the widow's hands too. In all of this, the physical, repeated act of measuring flour, kneading dough, tending a small fire, day after day after day. Faith, in her story, was never a single decision made once and then set aside. It was something rehearsed daily, in ordinary motions, with ordinary hands, long after the drama of the prophet's initial visit had faded into routine. There's something worth noticing in that. I think, for anyone whose own faith feels less like a dramatic mountaintop moment and more like this, small, repeated, ordinary acts of trust, carried out quietly, without fanfare, day after day, simply because it's what faithfulness looks like when translated into an actual life. Getting up, doing the next right thing, trusting the jar one more morning, even when you're tired of trusting it. Even when some small, worried part of you wonders if today will be the day it finally runs dry. It rarely announces itself as courage. This kind of daily, unremarkable faithfulness but I think it might be one of the truest kinds there is. I think, finally, about the stranger himself. Elijah, tired from his own long journey, arriving at her gate with nothing to offer her but a word he trusted completely and a hunger he couldn't hide. It strikes me that God's provision for the widow came wrapped inside someone else's need. She wasn't simply handed abundance from the sky. She was asked to give first, to pour out what little she had for someone else's hunger. And only then did she discover that what she'd given had somehow multiplied in the giving. I don't fully understand how that works, and I don't think it's meant to be turned into a formula. Give, and you will receive, as though faith were some kind of transaction. But there is something quietly beautiful in the shape of it all the same. Her scarcity and the prophet's hunger met each other at her door. And out of that meeting, out of her willingness to share the very last of what she had, came enough for both of them, and then enough again the next day, and the next, for as long as the famine lasted. Maybe there's a small invitation in that for you tonight too, whatever form it might take in your own life. The reminder that we were never really made to hoard our small store of resources entirely for ourselves, waiting until we feel safely abundant before we're willing to share any of it. Sometimes the very act of giving from our scarcity, gently, wisely, is the doorway through which we discover there was more sustaining us than we realized. I think about the smell of that small kitchen too. In the evenings that followed, the same familiar smell of bread baking over a low fire. Night after night, the very smell that had once carried with it the weight of an ending, now carrying something gentler instead. Grief has a way of attaching itself to ordinary sensations sometimes. Doesn't it? A smell, a sound, a particular slant of evening light. And I wonder if it took her some time before that smell of baking bread stopped reminding her, even faintly, of the night she'd expected to be her last. But I imagine that eventually, it did. I imagine that eventually, the smell of bread in that small stone house became simply the smell of another ordinary evening. Another day survived. Another small mercy received without needing to remember. Each time, how close it had once come to not being there at all. I think that's often how healing actually happens. In the small, unremarkable moments. Not through some single dramatic breakthrough, but through enough ordinary evenings of enough, stacked one on top of another, until the old fear quietly loses its grip on the ordinary things it once attached itself to. Let the widow's small fire settle in your mind now. The low, warm flicker of it against the stone walls of that little house. Her son asleep, fed, safe, unaware of how close the ending had come and how gently it had been turned aside. And let this be the phrase that settles over you as we leave her home behind and step back out into the dark. One small light is enough tonight. God is tending the rest. Rest here a while longer. The wall behind us is fully lit now, every niche glowing softly against the night. And somewhere along that quiet stone boundary, the lamplighter is walking home, his own small flame still burning steady in his hand. He isn't in a hurry either. Neither are we. If your mind has wandered during this story, to tomorrow, to something unfinished, to a worry that keeps circling back no matter how many times you set it down, that's all right. That's what minds do, especially tired ones. Just notice it gently, without frustration, and let your attention drift back here, to my voice, to your breathing, to this quiet room. In, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing right now. Resting, listening, letting the day finally end. Let's walk on now gently toward a tired prophet resting beneath a small desert tree. By the time we return to Elijah, some time has passed since the widow's small jar of flour and the small jug of oil that never quite ran dry. He has done extraordinary things in between. Faced down a whole gathering of false prophets on a mountaintop. Watched fire fall from the sky at his word. Watched the long drought finally break into rain after years of dry sky. He has stood, more than once, in the very center of God's power, moving visibly through the world. And he has not flinched. And yet, here he is now, running a single threat, spoken by a single angry queen, was enough to unravel everything the mountain had built in him. Word had reached him that his life was wanted, that by this time tomorrow he would be dead. And something in him, something that had stood unshaken in front of fire falling from heaven, simply broke. He ran, not toward safety exactly, not toward any plan, but away, the particular kind of running that isn't really about the destination at all, just about putting distance between yourself and whatever has become unbearable. He ran a full day's journey into the wilderness, alone, until his body finally gave out beneath him. And there, under a solitary broom tree, a scraggly, low desert shrub, offering barely enough shade to matter, he sat down and he asked God to let him die. I have had enough, Lord. He said, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because I think it's one of the most honest lines in the whole of this old story. And it doesn't get told by firelight very often, does it? We tend to tell the mountaintop stories. The fire falling from the sky, the prophets defeated, the drought broken. We don't tell, quite as often, the story of the same man, Only days later, curled beneath a bush in the wilderness, so exhausted and so afraid that he asked God to end his life. But this is in the story too. It was always in the story. And I think it's there, in part, because so many of us have had our own version of this exact night. Not literally under a desert bush, but somewhere just as depleted, just as far past what we thought we could carry, just as quietly certain that we had nothing left to give. And here is what happened next. And I want you to notice how gently it unfolds, because there is no scolding in it anywhere, no lecture about faith, no reminder of the fire on the mountain, no after everything you've seen. How could you doubt now? None of that. He lay down under the tree, and he slept. And that, I think, might be one of the most tender details in the entire account. Before anything else happened, before any word was spoken to him, before any instruction was given, before any encouragement or correction, God simply let him sleep. The very first thing offered to an exhausted, terrified, spiritually depleted man was rest. Not a sermon, not a spiritual pep talk. Rest. While he slept, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." And when he looked around, there beside his head was a cake of bread baked over hot coals, and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then, and this detail matters too, he lay back down and slept again. The angel came a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." Not get up and go do something. Not get up and go face what frightened you. Simply eat, because the road ahead is more than your body can manage right now without help. I love that God repeated the process. Not once, but twice. Sleep, then food, then sleep again, then food again. There was no rush to get Elijah moving, no urgency to snap him out of his despair, no impatience with how long the recovery was taking. Just the slow, patient tending of a body and a spirit that had run out of everything it had to give. And I think this is worth sitting with tonight. Whoever you are, wherever this particular kind of tiredness has found you, the running past your limits kind, the asking to be done kind, the kind that doesn't always look dramatic from the outside, but feels, on the inside, like sitting down under a bush in the middle of nowhere, because you simply cannot go one more step. God's first response to Elijah's despair was never a correction. It was a meal, and a long sleep, and then another meal, and then another long sleep, before anything else was addressed. His fear, his isolation, his sense that he was the last faithful person left in the whole world. His body was cared for first, gently, without hurry, without demand, Sometimes I think we imagine that faith requires us to push through exhaustion, to muster up more strength from somewhere, to keep tending the lamp even after the oil has clearly run dry. But this part of the story suggests something different. That sometimes the most faithful thing a person can do is simply lie back down and let themselves be fed and let themselves sleep again, trusting that the same God who tended Elijah under that bush is entirely capable of tending you through whatever has exhausted you tonight. After the second meal, strengthened by that food, Elijah traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God, and there he found shelter in a cave. And it was there, finally, that God spoke to him, not in the way we might expect, not first through fire or wind or earthquake, though all three passed by the mouth of that cave in turn. Dramatic and enormous, God was not in the wind. God was not in the earthquake. God was not even in the fire. And after the fire, the story tells us, there came a gentle whisper, a sound so soft it required Elijah to wrap his cloak over his face and step to the mouth of the cave just to hear it clearly. And in that whisper, God asked him a simple question, the same question, in fact, that had been asked before the whole wilderness journey began. What are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah, still raw, still carrying the fear and exhaustion that had driven him into the desert in the first place, answered honestly. He told God everything, how zealous he had been, how alone he now felt, how it seemed to him that he was the last one left who still cared, and that they were seeking his life too. God did not argue with his exhaustion. God did not tell him he was wrong to feel what he felt. Instead, gently, God gave him direction, a task ahead, a companion coming to walk with him, and one small, quiet correction to his despair. He was not, in fact, the last one left. There were 7,000 others, unseen by Elijah, who had remained faithful all along. I find something deeply comforting in the order of all of this. Rest came before revelation. Food came before instruction. Sleep came before the whisper. God did not ask an exhausted man to summon strength he didn't have in order to hear from him. God met Elijah in his depletion first, fed him, let him sleep, fed him again, let him sleep again, and only then, once his body had been cared for, did the deeper conversation begin. I wonder if that's true for you tonight too. Maybe you've been carrying something that's left you as depleted as Elijah was under that tree. Not because your faith failed, not because you didn't try hard enough, but simply because the road really was too much for you. Exactly as the angel said. And maybe what you need most tonight isn't a resolution to whatever is troubling you. Maybe what you need most is exactly what Elijah was given first. Rest. Simple, unhurried, uncomplicated rest. Trusting that whatever conversation needs to happen with God about the rest of it can wait until morning, or the morning after that, or however many mornings it takes. The broom tree offered Elijah almost no real shelter. A low, scraggly bush, barely enough shade to matter. And yet it was enough, because the shelter was never really coming from the tree. It came from the one who found him there, and fed him there, and let him sleep there, twice over, before asking anything more of him at all. I think often about the particular cruelty of the thought that had brought Elijah to that tree in the first place. The belief, whispered to him by his own exhaustion, that he was utterly alone. I am the only one left, he told God, and they are seeking my life too. It's a strange kind of grief, isn't it? The loneliness that convinces us we're the last faithful person standing, that no one else understands, that whatever we're carrying entirely by ourselves. I wonder how many nights you've had a thought shape something like that. Not necessarily about faith specifically, but about anything. The particular ache of believing that no one else quite understands what you're going through. That you're facing something uniquely difficult, uniquely isolating, uniquely yours to bear alone. And I think it matters deeply that God's gentle correction to Elijah wasn't a rebuke. God didn't say, "How dare you think you're alone? Look at everything I've done for you." God simply said, quietly, in that same soft whisper, "You are not actually alone. There are 7,000 others, people you don't know about, who have remained faithful right alongside you this whole time. 7,000, hidden from Elijah's sight, but never hidden from God's. I think there might be a version of that comfort waiting for you too. Whatever isolation you've been carrying, you may not be able to see them. The others who are also awake right now, also tired, also praying some version of the same prayer you're praying, also trusting God through their own version of a hard season. But they're there. You are not as alone in this particular kind of tiredness as the darkness sometimes convinces you that you are. I also think about what happened after the whisper, after God's gentle question, after Elijah's honest answer, after the correction about the 7,000. God didn't leave him there under the tree indefinitely, resting forever without purpose. Eventually, gently, God gave him something to do again. A new king to anoint, a successor to train, work waiting for him further down the road. But notice the order again, because I think it matters as much as anything else in this whole story. Rest came first. Food came first. The whisper came first. The purpose came after, not before. not as a condition of the rest, but only once Elijah had actually been restored enough to carry it. I wonder if you've sometimes got that order backwards in your own life, waiting to feel rested before you'll let yourself actually rest, believing you need to have earned the stopping by first proving how hard you've worked. But Elijah hadn't earned anything when the angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He'd only just asked God to let him die. And still, the meal came. Still, the sleep came. Still, the whisper came, patient and unhurried, entirely undeserved and entirely given anyway. That's not how we usually treat ourselves, is it? But it is, apparently, how God treats the exhausted. I think, too, about the particular tree God chose for this moment. A broom tree, low and scrubby, not much to look at, offering only a thin patchwork of shade rather than any real shelter from the desert sun. God didn't wait to meet Elijah under some grander tree, some more impressive shelter befitting a prophet who had just called fire down from heaven. He met him exactly where he'd collapsed, under the nearest small bush, in the middle of nowhere in particular, with no ceremony, no grandeur, nothing but the plain, unremarkable comfort of a little shade and a little sleep. I find something deeply reassuring in that detail. God didn't require Elijah to reach some more dignified location before help arrived. He came to him under the broom tree, under whatever thin, unimpressive shelter Elijah had managed to find in his exhaustion. And I think that's true for wherever you are tonight too. You don't need a more dignified setting for God to meet you. You don't need your life to look more put together, your room to feel more peaceful, your heart to feel more resolved. He meets people under broom trees. He meets people exactly where their strength ran out. I also think about the specific words the angel used. Not get up and go, but get up and eat. There's something worth noticing in that ordering. Before any task was assigned, before any expectation was placed on him, his body was tended first. Nourishment before instruction, care before commission. I wonder how differently many of us might treat our own exhaustion if we let ourselves believe that same ordering applied to us. So often, when we're depleted, our instinct is to push straight through into action, to force ourselves back to the task list, back to the responsibilities waiting, believing that rest is something to be earned only after the work is finished. But Elijah's story suggests the opposite order entirely. Rest came first, nourishment came first, and only once his body had actually been restored. Twice over, was he strong enough for what still lay ahead? If you've been pushing yourself to keep functioning through an exhaustion that goes deeper than a single bad night, I want to gently suggest that maybe, like Elijah, what you need first isn't more effort. It's simply permission to eat and rest and eat again and rest again, trusting that whatever needs to be done can wait until your body has actually been cared for. I think finally, about the 40 days and nights Elijah traveled after that, strengthened by the food he'd been given, journeying all the way to the mountain of God. It strikes me that a single meal, twice given, was enough to carry him such a long distance, far longer, far further than seemed possible from someone who had, only days before, been ready to give up entirely. I don't think that's meant to suggest some formula, as though the right amount of rest guarantees a certain amount of strength afterward. But I do think it points to something true about how deeply restorative real rest actually is. When it's finally, fully received, Elijah didn't need 40 separate meals for 40 days of walking. He needed to actually stop, actually eat, actually sleep, without rushing back into motion too soon. And that unhurried rest carried him further than his own striving ever could have. I wonder what 40 days might be waiting on the other side of your own rest tonight. Not literally, but in whatever sense applies to your own life. Whatever strength you've been trying to manufacture through sheer effort and willpower might actually be waiting for you on the other side of simply letting yourself stop. Not forever, just for tonight, just long enough to be fed and rested the way Elijah was, before whatever mountain still waits ahead of you. I think, too, about what it must have meant for Elijah to eventually leave that wilderness altogether, to walk out from under the broom tree's thin shade, strengthened, and never look back at that particular low, scraggly bush again. I imagine he never forgot it, though I imagine that for the rest of his life, whenever exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him again, some part of him remembered that tree, and the bread baked on hot coals, and the gentle, patient way God had cared for him there, before asking anything more of him at all. I think memories like that can become a kind of anchor for us too. Not the crisis itself, but the specific memory of having been tended through it. Whatever broom tree you find yourself resting under tonight, whatever exhaustion has brought you to this particular low place, I hope this becomes one of those memories for you too. Not the hard season itself, but the quiet, patient care you received in the middle of it. Something you can return to, gently, the next time exhaustion threatens to convince you that you're facing it alone. Let the broom tree settle now over your own tired body. The low shade, the quiet coals still warm from the small fire that baked his bread. The deep, dreamless sleep of someone finally allowed to stop. And let this be the phrase that covers you gently as we leave him resting there. One small light is enough tonight. God is tending the rest. Gentle reassurance pause. Rest here once more, just for a moment. Elijah is sleeping peacefully now, somewhere behind us in this story, fed and unhurried, in no rush to rise before he's ready. If your own body feels a little like his did, worn thin, past the edge of what you thought you could carry today, let that be all right. You don't have to earn your rest tonight any more than he did. Feel the weight of your own body now, sinking a little further into the bed beneath you. Feel your breathing slow, on its own, without needing to force it. In and out. There's no test at the end of the story. There's nothing to remember, nothing to prove. Only this: your body, resting, cared for, exactly the way his was. One more small light ahead of us tonight, out on a dark and quiet sea. The storm, the small lamp, the boat, the one who slept through it all, the calm that followed. It had been a long day of teaching, and as evening came on, Jesus turned to the ones who had followed him and said simply, "Let us go over to the other side." So they left the crowd behind on the shore and took him along in the boat, just as he was. And there were other small boats with them as well, scattered across the darkening water like a loose gathering of fireflies. I want you to picture the boat itself for a moment. Not large, wooden, built for fishing rather than comfort. The kind of vessel that a handful of grown men could crowd into without much room to spare. And somewhere near the stern, in the fading evening light, someone would have lit a small oil lamp. Not for grandeur, simply for practicality. The ordinary kind of light a fishing boat carried so its crew could see their hands, see the ropes, see each other's faces in the coming dark. It was such an unremarkable detail that the story barely pauses to mention it. A lamp at the stern of a boat heading out onto open water at evening. The most ordinary thing in the world. They pushed off from shore, the coastline shrinking slowly behind them, the small lamp flickering low and steady near the back of the boat. And Jesus, worn out, I imagine, from the long day of crowds and teaching, made his way toward the stern, found a cushion there, and lay down, and he slept. I want you to sit with that detail for a moment, because I think it's easy to move past it too quickly on the way to the more dramatic parts of this story. Jesus was tired, genuinely, physically tired, the way any of us get tired after a long day of being fully present with people who need us. So as the boat pushed out into open water, he made his way to the stern, found a cushion, and lay down, and he slept. A furious squall came up while he slept. The waves broke over the boat, so much so that it was nearly swamped. This wasn't a gentle rocking that might lull a tired man deeper into sleep. This was a genuine, dangerous storm, the kind that could sink a boat and drown everyone in it. experienced fishermen among the disciples were afraid. And yet, Mark tells us plainly, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. I want you to sit with that image for a long moment tonight, because I think it might be one of the most comforting pictures in all of Scripture for an anxious heart. The storm was completely real. The danger was completely real. The waves were genuinely breaking over the boat. And in the middle of all of it, Jesus slept, not because he was unaware of the storm, not because he didn't care what was happening. He slept because his peace was never dependent on the absence of the storm in the first place. The disciples finally woke him, crying out, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" There's real fear in that question, and real hurt too. The sense that if he truly cared, surely he wouldn't be sleeping through something this dangerous. Jesus got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And Mark tells us the wind died down, and it was completely calm. Completely calm. Not slowly settling. Not gradually improving. The instant he spoke, the storm simply obeyed. The way a child grows, still the instant a parent they trust speaks a single calming word. He then asked his disciples something gentle but pointed. "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified and asked one another, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." I think about this story often on nights when my own circumstances feel like they're breaking over the sides of whatever boat I'm in. Jesus never promised his followers a life free of storms. He was in the same boat, in the very same storm, as everyone else. The difference was never the absence of danger. The difference was where his peace came from. His peace wasn't dependent on the water being calm. It came from something deeper. A settled trust that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, held by a Father whose plans the storm could not overrule. That kind of peace can sleep straight through a squall that terrifies everyone else in the boat. I wonder if that's the peace being offered to you tonight, too. Not a peace that requires your particular storm to calm down first. Not a peace that depends on your circumstances finally settling before you're allowed to rest. A peace that can exist fully, right in the middle of waves, still breaking over the sides of your own boat. You may be tempted, the way the disciples were, to wonder whether God cares, simply because your storm hasn't stopped yet. But notice this carefully. Jesus wasn't absent from that boat. He was in it the whole time, even while he slept. His stillness in the middle of the storm was never evidence of his absence. It was evidence of exactly how much peace was available the entire time. If only they trusted it sooner. He is not absent from your boat tonight either. Even if your particular storm hasn't quieted yet, he is near. Whether sleeping peacefully in your circumstances, or speaking a calming word directly into them. Either way, the outcome is the same. You are not facing your storm alone, and the one in the boat with you has authority over every wave. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this night alone. Rest with me a little longer, friend. Breathe in slowly and out. One more quiet visit before we close. Nicodemus was a Pharisee, a member of the Jewish ruling council, a man whose entire life had been built on careful study, public respectability, and religious authority. By every outward measure, he had already arrived at everything his world considered success. And yet, Scripture tells us he came to Jesus at night. We're not told exactly why he chose the darkness for this visit, but it isn't hard to imagine a man of his standing seeking out a traveling teacher whose growing following unsettled the religious establishment Nicodemus belonged to. It would have cost him something to be seen doing that in daylight. So he came after dark, when questions could be asked without an audience, when uncertainty didn't have to be performed publicly. "Rabbi," he said, "we know you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the signs you are doing if God were not with him." There's something honest underneath that careful opening. Nicodemus, for all his religious accomplishment, was genuinely searching for something he hadn't yet found. And Jesus, rather than easing into the conversation gently, went straight to the heart of it. "Very truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again." Nicodemus, understandably confused, asked how a grown man could possibly be born a second time. And Jesus began to explain something that went far beyond religious achievement or careful study. A spiritual renewal that no amount of expertise or status could produce on its own. The wind blows wherever it pleases. Jesus told him, "You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit." I think there's something so tender about this particular night conversation. Nicodemus came in the dark, carrying questions he couldn't fully voice in the daylight. And Jesus didn't turn him away for his uncertainty, didn't shame him for needing the cover of night to ask. He simply met him exactly there, in his honest confusion, and spoke truth into it patiently. And in the middle of that quiet, nighttime conversation, Jesus said some of the most well-known, most comforting words in all of Scripture. "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." Think about the setting of that verse for a moment. Not a public sermon before a large crowd, not a dramatic display before religious leaders. A quiet, private conversation at night with one uncertain man who had come seeking answers under the cover of darkness. Some of the greatest truths ever spoken were given not in the noise of daylight, but in the stillness of a nighttime conversation between two people. If you've ever felt like your own honest questions about faith or life or who you're becoming could only be voiced in the quiet privacy of night, you are in good company. Nicodemus, a respected religious leader, needed the cover of darkness to ask his most honest questions too. And Jesus welcomed him fully, without judgment, offering him truth patient enough to work with wherever he currently stood. We don't know everything about what happened to Nicodemus immediately after that night. But later in the Gospel of John, we see him defending Jesus before the religious council when others wanted to condemn him without a fair hearing. And after the crucifixion, it was Nicodemus, along with Joseph of Arimathea, who brought a large quantity of myrrh and aloes and helped prepare Jesus' body for burial with reverence and care. Whatever seed was planted in that quiet, nighttime conversation clearly grew. Slowly, over time, into a genuine, costly devotion. Nicodemus didn't leave that conversation with every question resolved, but he left having encountered truth honestly, in the dark, without needing to pretend he already understood it all. If tonight you're carrying your own honest questions about faith, about your life, about who you're becoming, about things you've never quite said out loud to anyone in the daylight, you are welcome to bring them here now, in this quiet, in whatever way feels honest to you. You don't need polished words. You don't need your uncertainty resolved before you're allowed to ask. Jesus met Nicodemus exactly where he was. At night, in his questions, and he meets you there too. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this night alone. Before our final prayer of surrender, let's pray a little longer tonight, friend, naming some specific things that so often keep hearts awake in the dark. If one of these fits what you're carrying, let it settle over you gently. If it doesn't, simply rest in the ones that do. Father, if it's health that weighs on this listener tonight, a diagnosis, a symptom, a fear about their body or the body of someone they love, I ask you to be near in that fear specifically. You made this body. You know it completely, every part of it, far better than any test or scan ever could. Steady this heart tonight. Let sleep itself be part of the healing you're already working. Quietly even now. If it's money that weighs on them, bills that feel too large, a job that feels uncertain, a future that feels financially unclear, I ask you to be their provider tonight, the way you provided grain for Ruth in the dark, the way you fed Elijah under his tree. Quiet the fear of not having enough. Remind them that their worth was never measured by their bank account. and their future was never actually dependent on their own strength alone. If it's a relationship that weighs on them, a marriage under strain, a friendship that's grown distant, a family member they're worried about, a child who's struggling, a parent who's aging, I ask you to hold that relationship gently tonight. Where there is conflict, bring peace. Where there is distance, bring reconciliation in your timing. Where there is worry over someone they love, remind this listener that you love that person even more deeply than they do. And you are already at work in ways they cannot yet see. If it's grief that weighs on them, someone they've lost, a season that's ended, a version of life they miss and can't get back, I ask you to sit with them in that grief tonight, not rushing them past it, not asking them to feel better before they're ready. Let their tears, if there are any tonight, be sacred to you. Let sleep bring a small mercy of rest from the weight of missing what they've lost. If it's their own future that weighs on them, a decision they can't make, a path that feels unclear, a next step they can't yet see, I ask you to go ahead of them into tomorrow. The way you went ahead of Ruth into a morning she couldn't yet picture. They don't need the whole road lit up tonight. They only need enough light for the next step. And your promise that you'll provide the rest of the light exactly when it's needed. If it's simply anxiety itself that weighs on them, not tied to one specific thing, but a low hum of worry that follows them through their days and grows louder at night. I ask you to be especially near in that kind of fear. It can feel the loneliest because it doesn't always have a name. But you know exactly what it is, even when they can't quite explain it. Quiet it now. Let peace, the kind that doesn't need a reason, settle over their mind and body. And Father, for anything I haven't named specifically tonight, whatever this listener is carrying that only you and they know about, I ask you to meet it just the same. You don't need it spoken aloud to already understand it fully. You knew it before they did. Hold it gently tonight and let them rest, truly rest, in the knowledge that it's already in your hands. Thank you that you are not overwhelmed by any of this. Thank you that 1,000 different fears, carried by 1,000 different hearts tonight, are not too much for you to hold all at once. Thank you that you are near to this listener specifically, personally, not as one voice in a crowd, but as someone fully known and fully loved. In Jesus' steady, faithful name I pray. Amen. Let's rest here for a while longer, friend. Nowhere left to go, nothing left to think through. Just a few more gentle words of Scripture, spoken slowly, one at a time, for you to rest inside of. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. He gives to his beloved sleep. In peace I will lie down and sleep, For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love, he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing. Be still and know that I am God. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Let those words rest over you now. However many of them you heard, however many drifted past you into sleep before you caught them fully, they are all still true, whether you were awake to hear every one or not. You are shepherded. You are refreshed. You are kept. You are loved. You are held. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this night alone. If your eyes are still open, even just slightly, let them close now. Gently, all the way. There's nothing left to watch for tonight. Everything worth tending has already been tended by hands far steadier than your own. Let your last thought tonight be a simple one. Not a plan, not a worry, just this small, quiet phrase, repeated as many times as you need it, until sleep finally, fully arrives. One small light is enough. God is tending the rest. One small light is enough. God is tending the rest. Rest well, friend. Rest well. there were two men named Paul and Silas, traveling from town to town, telling anyone who would listen about a love that had changed everything for them. In one city, their message stirred up such anger among a few powerful people that a crowd formed, dragged them into the marketplace, and had them beaten badly, publicly, with rods, again and again, until their backs were torn open and bleeding. Then, without so much as a trial, they were thrown into the innermost cell of the prison, the darkest, most secure part of the building, reserved for the prisoners least likely to be shown any mercy. And to make certain they couldn't escape, the jailer fastened their feet in wooden restraints that locked their ankles in place, so they couldn't even shift their weight to ease the pain in their backs. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because it's easy to move past details like this too quickly in a story we already know the ending to. These were two men in real physical agony, wounds still fresh, ankles locked in wood, lying on a cold stone floor in the deepest, darkest part of a prison, with no reason to expect anything but more suffering tomorrow, if ever there was a night that deserved despair. Groaning, silence, this was it. Instead, around midnight, the deepest, darkest part of the night, the hour when hope is usually hardest to hold on to, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, out loud, in the dark, with their backs still bleeding and their feet still locked in restraints. And the other prisoners were listening. I think that detail might be the most remarkable part of the whole story. Not the earthquake that's about to come. We'll get there. But this, two badly injured men, with every reason in the world to be silent, chose instead to fill that dark prison with singing. Not because they felt nothing, not because the pain had somehow stopped, but because somewhere in the middle of real suffering, they had learned to hold onto something steadier than their circumstances. Maybe you've had nights like that too, in your own way. Not literal chains, but a kind of internal struggle. A season so painful that singing feels almost impossible. And yet something in you still wants to reach for it anyway. Still wants to believe there's a reason to. If that's you tonight, know that you're in good company. Paul and Silas didn't sing because the pain wasn't real. They sang in spite of it. And somehow, through it, suddenly, around midnight, a violent earthquake shook the prison's foundations. The doors flew open, every single one of them, all through the building, and everyone's chains came loose. The jailer, jolted awake, saw the doors standing open in the dark, and assumed the worst. His prisoners had escaped. and he would be executed for failing his one job. He drew his sword, ready to take his own life rather than face that disgrace. And Paul called out into the darkness, urgently, kindly, don't harm yourself. We are all here. All here. Not one of them had run, even with the doors wide open, even with their chains loosed, even with freedom sitting right in front of them. It's worth pausing on that too. Why would men who had just been beaten and unjustly imprisoned choose to stay? Perhaps because somewhere in that midnight singing, something had shifted in them that made escape feel less urgent than the chance to show this frightened jailer, a man who, hours earlier, had personally locked their feet into wooden restraints, a kindness he hadn't expected and certainly hadn't earned. The jailer, trembling, called for lights and rushed in, fell down before Paul and Silas, and asked the question that had apparently been forming in him all along. Sirs, what must I do to be saved? They told him simply. In that same hour, in the middle of the night, he washed their wounds himself, and he and his whole household were baptized before sunrise. The very jailer who had locked them in restraints, now feeding them at his own table, rejoicing because he had come to believe. There's a phrase worth returning to before we move on. At midnight, they were praying and singing, not after the earthquake, not after the rescue, before it, in the middle of the worst part of their circumstances, before anything had changed, before there was any sign that anything was about to change. I wonder if that's the real invitation of this story for you tonight. Not that an earthquake is necessarily coming to shake loose whatever has you locked in place, though it might be, but that the singing, the praying, the choosing to trust, these don't have to wait for the earthquake first. They can come at midnight, in the dark, in the middle of real pain, simply because something steadier than the pain has taken up residence in you. If tonight has felt like a version of that inner cell, locked in place by circumstances you didn't choose, wounded in ways that haven't healed yet, unable to shift your weight to find comfort no matter how you try, let this story be your midnight song. You don't have to wait for the doors to fly open before your heart is allowed to rest. Let your body settle now, the way Paul and Silas settled into praise even in the dark, trusting that the God who shakes prison foundations loose is not far from the pain you're carrying tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Movement 8, Gethsemane. There is one more night worth walking through with you, and it may be the hardest one of all, not because it involves lions or storms or chains, but because it belongs to Jesus himself. In the hours just before everything in his story turned toward the cross, he went that evening to a garden, a place he had visited many times before with his closest friends. A familiar place suddenly made unfamiliar by the weight of what was coming. He brought Peter, James, and John a little further in with him than the others, and told them plainly, in words that still ache to read, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." I want you to sit with that phrase for a moment. Overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. This is not a distant, composed figure moving calmly toward his destiny. This is a man in real anguish, dreading what was coming with every part of him. Honest enough to say so out loud to the friends nearest to him. If you have ever felt overwhelmed to the point where your body itself seemed to buckle under the weight of dread, a diagnosis you're waiting on, a loss you can already feel coming, a fear so large it presses the breath out of you. This garden was made for nights like that. He went a little further, fell to the ground, and prayed that if it were possible, this hour might pass from him. 3 times, the text tells us, he returned to the same prayer, wrestling with what lay ahead so intensely that it describes his sweat falling to the ground like drops of blood. This is not a small thing to imagine. A man in such deep anguish that his own body responded as if wounded, hours before any physical suffering had even begun. And each time, in the middle of that anguish, he said the same thing. Not what I will, but what you will. I don't want to move past this too quickly, because I think we sometimes imagine that trusting God means not feeling the dread in the first place. That real faith looks calm, untroubled, composed. But here is Jesus, God himself, in a garden at night, overwhelmed to the point that his body was breaking under the weight of what was coming, still choosing, again and again, to surrender to what his Father asked of him. The anguish and the trust were not opposites. They existed together, in the same prayer, in the same night. Each time he returned to his friends, he found them asleep, not out of malice, but out of a kind of grief-heavy exhaustion of their own. The same exhaustion sleep sometimes brings when a body simply can't carry the weight of what's coming any longer. He didn't wake them harshly. Could you not keep watch with me for 1 hour? Not an accusation so much as a quiet ache. The very human longing to not be alone in the hardest moment, even while trusting a Father who never once actually left him. And then, in the account, we're told that an angel appeared and strengthened him, not removed the anguish, not answered the prayer the way the anguish wanted it answered. Strengthen him to keep walking toward what still lay ahead. Sometimes that is exactly what help looks like. Not the removal of the hard thing, but strength enough to face it. One more breath, one more hour, at a time. By the time the soldiers arrived to arrest him, something in Jesus had settled. The anguish of the earlier hours had given way to a steady, unshaken resolve, not because the fear was gone, but because the surrender had done its quiet work in him. If tonight holds its own kind of garden for you, a dread you can't quite explain away, a sorrow that presses down harder than it should, a fear about something still ahead of you that no one else can fully carry with you, even the people who love you most. I want you to know that this garden has room for you too. You don't have to arrive at peace before you're allowed to bring your anguish honestly. You don't have to stop dreading before you're allowed to trust. Say the same prayer tonight, in whatever words fit your own fear. Not what I will, but what you will. Let it be honest. Let it include the dread. And let yourself be strengthened. Even now, even in the anguish, the way he was strengthened in that garden, not by the removal of what's hard, but by a presence that never once actually left, not even when it felt, for a few dark hours, like it might have. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Movement 9, the road to Emmaus. Our last story tonight doesn't happen at midnight, but in the fading light of a long evening. The kind of evening that follows a day so heavy with grief and confusion that the coming dark feels almost like a mercy, a chance to finally stop and rest from trying to make sense of things. Two friends were walking together from Jerusalem to a village, several miles down a dusty road, talking quietly, or perhaps not so quietly, about everything that had happened over the last few days. The arrest, the death of the one they had believed was going to save everything. The strange and unsettled reports that his body was no longer in the tomb where it had been laid. Their voices carried the particular exhaustion of people who have been turning the same painful facts over and over, hoping that one more conversation might finally make them make sense. As they walked, someone joined them on the road, fell into step beside them, easily, the way a stranger might on a well-traveled path, and asked what they were discussing so intently. They stopped walking, their faces downcast, and one of them, a little incredulous that anyone in the region wouldn't already know, explained everything. The teacher mighty in word and deed, the crucifixion, their shattered hope that he was the one who was going to redeem everything. The confusing reports from the women that morning, And the whole time, the person walking beside them was Jesus himself. But something kept them from recognizing him. I think that detail is worth sitting with for a moment, because it might be the gentlest picture of a truth that's easy to forget on hard nights. Sometimes God is walking directly beside us. In the very conversation we're having about how alone and confused we feel. And we simply don't recognize him yet. Not because he's hiding from us out of any cruelty, but because grief has a way of narrowing our sight down to only what we expect to see. And we don't expect him to look like an ordinary traveler on an ordinary road. He listened to their whole account, their disappointment, their confusion, their grief, before he said a word of correction. He let them speak first. He let their sorrow be fully heard before he offered them anything else. And then, gently, he began to walk them back through the history that had shaped their whole lives, showing them how all of it, even the parts that looked, on the surface, like devastating failure, had been leading toward exactly this all along. As they approached the village, evening coming on fast now, the light going gold and then gray the way it does at the very end of a long day, the stranger acted as if he would continue on, and they urged him to stay. It is nearly evening. The day is almost over. The simple, practical hospitality of people who don't want a companion walking on alone into the dark. He agreed and sat down to eat with them. And it was there, at that ordinary table, in that small village home, as he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it, the exact motion, the exact gesture they had seen him make before, that their eyes were suddenly opened, and they recognized him. And in that same instant, he vanished from their sight. They turned to each other immediately, astonished, and said the thing that has stayed with me longer than almost anything else in this story. Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road, while he opened the truth to us? Their hearts had known something before their eyes caught up. Something in them had been warming. Quietly, the whole walk, recognized in some wordless way, long before recognition became conscious. They didn't need to see his face to be near him. They had been near him the entire time. In their grief, in their confusion, in their downcast faces on that dusty road. And it had changed something in them, even before they knew why. I wonder if that's true for you. Some nights, in ways you haven't fully noticed yet. A warmth underneath the worry. A steadiness underneath the fear. A sense, however faint, that you are not walking quite as alone as you feel. Maybe tonight is one of those nights. Maybe God has been walking beside you through this very conversation, through this very story, and the recognition simply hasn't caught up yet with what your heart has already sensed. You don't have to see clearly to be walked with. Those two travelers didn't. They walked for miles beside the very answer to their grief without recognizing him even once. And he didn't seem troubled by that. He simply kept walking, kept listening, kept explaining, kept staying, until the moment was right for their eyes to finally open. Let that be true for you tonight too. However your own eyes are still adjusting to the dark, he is near. Even in the miles you don't yet recognize him in. He is patient with unrecognized company. And when the evening comes, and the day is almost over, and you ask him, however you ask it, in whatever words you have, to stay, he will. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Expanded reflective application for the anxious listener. If you're still awake with me, I want to speak to you for a while now. Not with another story, just plainly, friend to friend. Before we close, 9 nights now, 9 different kinds of fear. A man alone in the wilderness with nothing but a stone for comfort. A teacher so depleted he wanted to stop living. A boat full of grown men convinced they were about to drown. A prisoner surrounded by lions. A man in chains the night before his own execution. A room full of grieving friends behind a locked door. 2 men beaten and bound, singing in the dark at midnight. A man in a garden so overwhelmed with sorrow that his own body seemed to buckle under the weight of it. And 2 friends walking beside the very answer to their grief without recognizing him at all. Not one of them was told the danger wasn't real. Not one of them had their circumstances fixed before peace was allowed to reach them. In every single story, comfort arrived while the hard thing was still happening. I wonder what your version of tonight's fear looks like. Maybe it's something with a name, a diagnosis, a conversation you're dreading, a relationship slipping through your hands, a financial worry that follows you into every quiet moment. Or maybe it's just a low hum that never fully switches off, one that gets louder specifically at night, when the room goes quiet and there's nothing left to distract you from it. If that's you, I don't want to rush past what you're carrying by simply telling you to stop worrying. Jesus himself, in that garden, didn't pretend his dread away. He named it plainly, overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, and still trusted, still surrendered, still let himself be strengthened in the middle of the anguish rather than after it passed. So here is what I want to offer you. Permission. Permission to still be afraid and still be held. Permission to sing at midnight, the way Paul and Silas did. Not because the pain has stopped, but because something steadier than the pain lives in you too. Permission to walk for miles without recognizing his presence, and still be walked with the entire time. Your heart quietly warming to a truth your eyes haven't caught up to yet. You are not failing at faith because you're anxious tonight. You are not too far gone, too tired, too doubtful, too afraid to be met exactly where you are. I want you to notice one more thing before we close. Something that threads through every single one of these 9 nights. None of them ended in the dark. Every single night in this story eventually gave way to morning. Every single one. Yours will too. Try this with me now. Slowly. No rush. Whatever the specific shape of your worry is tonight, picture it small enough to hold in your 2 open hands. Now, slowly, turn your hands over, palms down, and let it drop. Not because it stops mattering, but because it was never meant to be carried by you alone in the first place. And because morning is coming, the way it always has, the way it always will. He is present now, in this room, with you. 9 nights, 9 kinds of fear, 1 steady, unbroken presence running underneath every single one, and underneath yours too. Tonight, God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Expanded prayer of surrender. Let's close our hearts in prayer together. One last time tonight. Father, we bring you everything we've been holding on to tonight. The worries that followed us into this room. The fears that don't have easy answers. The tiredness that goes deeper than our bodies. We lay our heads down on hard ground tonight. And we ask you to meet us here, even in the places that feel most lonely. We admit we are tired, more tired, some of us, than we've said out loud in a long time. Thank you that you don't ask us to be strong before you'll let us rest. We bring you our storms tonight. Speak peace over them. Surrounded by things that could genuinely hurt us. We ask you to keep us safe in the dark tonight. We surrender our own timelines to you tonight. We open the door of our hearts to you now, trusting you've never waited for open doors before coming near. We choose tonight, even now, even here, to let a quiet song rise up in us instead of despair, trusting that you are near even before anything visibly changes. We bring you our own anguish honestly tonight, whatever shape it takes, and we pray the same prayer. Not what we will, but what you will. Strengthen us, not by taking the hard thing away, but by giving us enough for the next step, and the next, and the next. And we ask you to open our eyes tonight to a presence that may have been walking beside us longer than we realized. Stay with us. Lord, the day is almost over, and we don't want to face the dark without you. Take this night. Lord, take every worry we've carried into it. We release our grip on all of it now, and we ask for the kind of sleep that only comes from truly trusting you. Deep, undisturbed, and safe. Thank you that you never sleep, so we don't have to stay awake, keeping watch over our own lives. We love you. We trust you, and we rest now in your hands until morning. In Jesus' name, Amen. Expanded closing outro, slow wind down. You've made it to the end of our 9 watches of the night. Friend, though of course, you may have drifted off long before now. And that's exactly how this was meant to go. There's nothing left to think about now. Nothing left to solve. Nothing left to carry. Just this quiet room and this soft background sound and the simple truth we've walked through together tonight. One story at a time. A man alone in the wilderness, discovering the ground beneath him was holy the whole time. A person too tired to go on, fed and rested before being asked to do anything else. A boat full of frightened friends, watching wind and waves obey 3 quiet words. A person surrounded by danger, kept safe by a presence stronger than any hunger. A prisoner in chains, sleeping so peacefully that heaven had to wake them up to set them free. A room full of grieving friends, met with peace before their questions were ever answered. 2 bruised people singing at midnight, and a household changed before sunrise. A moment heavy with sorrow, met with strength enough for 1 more hour. And a dusty road at evening, walked the whole way beside a presence not yet recognized. 9 nights, 9 fears, 1 steady thread running underneath every single one of them, and underneath yours too. Tonight, God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Let your breathing slow now, all the way down, in and out. No need to count anymore. Just soft, easy breaths, the kind that come naturally when a body finally, fully lets go. If your mind wanders back to something from today, gently set it down. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs your attention, but it doesn't need it right now. Right now, there is only this: rest and the quiet, steady presence of the one who never once, in 9 long nights of stories, or in this one night of yours, has left the room. There is nowhere you can go tonight that he is not already there. No wilderness too lonely. No exhaustion too deep. No storm too loud. No night too dark. No chain too tight. No door too locked. No midnight too heavy. No sorrow too great. No road too unrecognized. He has already gone ahead into every one of those places. And he is here now, in this quiet room with you, as the last of the light fades and sleep finally fully arrives. Sleep now, friend, deeply, peacefully, held. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rested. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rested. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you You can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Resting. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rest. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rested. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rested. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rest. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rested. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rested. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rested. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rest. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rested. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rest. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. He was in the wilderness before you got there. He was in the storm before it woke you. He was in the dark before you noticed it. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry. Rest now. The morning is already on its way. Rest now. You are exactly where you're meant to be. He does not sleep. He does not grow tired of loving you. He is not far from you right now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands stay open. Let your breathing slow. Whatever you're carrying, you can set it down now. It will still be there tomorrow if it needs you. Tonight, it doesn't. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Let it be still. You are not alone in this room. You have never been alone in this room. You will not be alone when you wake. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. He was there before you fell asleep. He is here now. He will be here when you wake. You are held. You are watched over. You are not forgotten. Rest. There is nothing left to carry. The morning is already on its way. He does not sleep. He is not far from you. He has not moved. Let your breathing slow. Let your body sink deeper. Let everything else stay quiet. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will not wake up alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone. Rest. You are held. Peace. Be still. You are not alone. God is near. God is steady. You do not carry this alone tonight. Sleep now. Friend, you are held until morning.